I never really liked going back to my dad's old house. It had this weird smell, a mix of old wood, mold, and something else I couldn't place. The kind of smell that sticks to your clothes, no matter how short your visit is. It was one of those houses that just felt heavy. You know what I mean? Like the air inside it was thicker than usual, like it was hiding something. After Dad passed, the house became mine. I didn't want it, to be honest, but I didn't have the heart to sell it either. Too many memories, some good, a lot of them not. So last summer, I decided to take a break from city life and spend a month there. I had this idea that maybe I could fix it up, rent it out or something. Big mistake. The house was in a small town in upstate New York. Pretty place, surrounded by woods. You could walk outside at night and actually see the stars, peaceful on the surface. But that house, that place had a soul, and not a good one. From the day I arrived, things fell off. Like the moment I stepped in, the floor creaked under my feet. Not like normal old house creaking, but like it groaned at my return. I laughed it off. I had to. Otherwise, I would have just turned around and left. The first few days were fine. I spent them dusting off furniture, fixing leaky pipes, and killing spiders. Then one night I found the room. I was cleaning the basement. It was mostly used for storage, old tools, some of Dad's junk, and shelves full of things nobody touched in years. While moving a heavy shelf, I noticed the floor underneath had a slightly different color, like less dusty, almost cleaner. That's when I realized it wasn't floor. It was a wooden trapdoor. I swear to God, I lived in that house until I was 18 and had never once seen that thing. I should have just ignored it. But something about it, I felt like it was calling me. It wasn't even locked. I pulled the rusted ring and lifted it open. Beneath it was a short set of wooden stairs leading to, I didn't even know what. A room? A crawl space? It was pitch black. I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and went down. It was colder there, way colder, like someone left a freezer door open. And the smell, it wasn't mold, it was metallic, like blood. The space was maybe 8 feet by 8 feet, low ceiling, dirt floor, and in the center there was a small wooden chair and a rusted metal bucket. And that's it. No lights, no windows, just that. I stood there for a minute, my light shaking a little. I don't scare easy, but I felt like I wasn't alone in there, like someone was standing behind me. But when I turned, it was just the stairs. I didn't sleep that night. Next morning, I called my cousin Jenna. She grew up in that house too. I asked her if she ever heard of a hidden room in the basement. She paused. Wait, are you talking about the old canning room? Canning room? Yeah, Uncle Dave mentioned it once. Said Grandpa used to store meat down there. Like a smokehouse or whatever. But he told me never to go down there, that it was sealed for a reason. I thought he was just being creepy. Who sealed it? Dunno. He just said to leave it the hell alone. I didn't say anything else, just thanked her and hung up. But something about the way she said sealed for a reason got stuck in my head. That night, I couldn't resist. I went back down. This time I stayed longer, sat on the floor, tried to just understand what this room was for. The more I stared at it, the more it felt like it wasn't a canning room at all, that chair. Why just a chair and a bucket? Why the deep scratches on the wood near the base of the chair? Then I noticed it. Something etched into the wall, just barely visible. I got closer. It was a name. Lucy, 1972. I didn't know any Lucy, not in my family, not in any stories. The next morning I went digging, literally and figuratively. I started with old family photos in the attic. Albums stacked high, full of smiling faces, birthday parties, fishing trips. But then I found this old shoebox with newspaper clippings, death certificates, even a few handwritten letters. That's where I saw her. A picture of a little girl, maybe 6 or 7. Blonde hair, big eyes. Name written on the back, Lucy Brennan. I flipped through the other documents. Then I found it, a death certificate. Lucy Brennan, died 1972, cause of death, accidental drowning. I froze. How does someone drown in a house with no pool? I called Jenna again. Hey, did you ever hear about a girl named Lucy Brennan? Silence. Then a long sigh. Shit. I was hoping you'd never ask about her. I waited. She was our aunt, Dad's little sister. Died before we were born. It was kind of a dark story. Family never talked about it. How did she die? They said she fell into the river behind the house, but what? There was no river. What? There's no river behind the house. There's a creek, but it's like 2 feet deep. A toddler couldn't drown in that unless someone held her under. I felt my stomach turn. Jenna continued. Rumor is, our grandfather had a temper. People in town said he was not right in the head. There were whispers that he used to lock Lucy in the basement when she misbehaved. I hung up without saying goodbye. I couldn't breathe. I knew the room was real. I knew the story was real. And I knew something terrible happened down there. For the next few nights I stayed upstairs, but I kept hearing sounds like crying, faint, but definitely there. Sometimes I'd wake up and feel like someone was sitting at the edge of my bed. Every time I turned on the light, no one was there. I started having dreams, always the same. A little girl standing in the basement, covered in dirt, eyes hollow, whispering something I couldn't hear. I finally gave in. Went back down to the room, sat in the chair. I'm sorry, I said. I didn't know. Then I heard it. A soft whisper right behind me. It hurt. I turned, but again, no one there. I left the house that night, drove 3 hours to my apartment in the city. Didn't look back. Later, I hired a guy to fill in the basement room, cement it shut. I told him it was unsafe. He didn't ask questions. But before he did, I went back one last time. I brought flowers, left them in the center of the room. And on the wall, I added one more word beneath Lucy's name. Forgiven. I never went back to that house. I ended up selling it to a young couple who loved old character homes. I didn't tell them about the basement. I figured maybe whatever needed to rest down there already had. But sometimes on cold nights, I still hear her in my dreams. And I wonder, what if no one had found the room? What if Lucy had just been forgotten? Some secrets don't stay buried, not in families, not in basements, especially not in houses that breathe. You ever go back to a childhood place and realize that the weird stuff you brushed off as a kid actually had some serious messed up vibes? That was me last year. My grandma's house, God rest her soul, used to be my favorite place when I was little. Big garden, swing in the backyard, endless supply of cookies, and the smell of old wood and cinnamon that made the whole place feel like a hug. But there was one room in that house we were never allowed to go in. The room at the end of the hallway upstairs. It had a thick white wooden door, always locked, and always freezing cold when you walked past it. No matter the season, no matter the weather outside. Grandma would flip out if we ever even touched the doorknob. That room is broken, pipes busted, mold, she'd say. But none of us believed her. Not really. Kids are curious, And I remember once, when I was like 10, my cousin Sam dared me to peek through the keyhole. I did. And I swear on everything I've got, I saw someone sitting on a chair inside. Not moving, not looking at me, just, sitting there. When I told Grandma, she slapped the back of my head and said if I ever lied about that room again, she'd send me home early. So yeah, we stopped asking. Anyway, fast forward to last year. Grandma passed away peacefully at 91. Heart failure. The house, the land, all of it got passed on to Mom, who didn't want to deal with it. So it ended up falling to me since I work remotely and have more flexibility, as she put it. My plan was simple. Head down there for a couple weeks, clean up, maybe sell the house or rent it out. It was old but charming. I figured some city couple would love it as a weekend getaway spot. But of course, nothing about that house was simple. The first few days were normal. Dust everywhere, lots of memories, lots of tears. Every room felt like it still held Grandma's presence, like she'd just stepped out to grab groceries. Her knitting needles on the table, her glasses still on the nightstand, her favorite slippers by the bed. But that damn room at the end of the hallway, still locked. I checked the door on day 3, still freezing cold, still shut tight. But now no one was around to slap my hand for touching it. I tried to open it, but it wouldn't budge. The lock was old, original brass. I didn't want to break it, so I figured I'd find the key. And that's when the weird stuff started. I was going through Grandma's drawers looking for spare keys and found a small metal box tucked away in the back of her wardrobe. No lock, just heavy. Inside were 3 things: an old key, a photo, and a letter. The photo was black and white. A woman, young, sitting in a rocking chair. Her face was turned away, but something about her posture felt off, like she was being forced to sit still. On the back of the photo, in Grandma's handwriting, it said, Eleanor, 1963, before the silence. The letter was addressed to nobody, just folded neatly with yellowing edges. It was short, just said, if you found this, then I'm gone. Don't go in that room. Some doors don't open without taking something. M. I stared at it for a long time. What did she mean by taking something? Like a price? I took the key anyway. That night I waited until it got dark. I don't know why. Maybe some part of me wanted to feel like a kid again. That rush of doing something forbidden. I crept up to the hallway, key in hand. The closer I got to the door, the colder it got, like walking into a fridge. I slid the key into the lock. It turned easily. The click echoed through the hallway. And I swear, I heard something shuffle inside. I pushed the door open. It was dark. Dust in the air. The room was exactly like I remembered peeking in. Small, plain, one rocking chair in the center. No windows, no decorations. Just that chair. But now, no one was in it. I stepped in, slow. The wooden floor creaked with each step. My breath fogged up in the air. And then the door slammed shut behind me. I turned, heart racing, tried the knob, locked again. Then, a creak. I spun around. The chair was rocking. Not wildly, just gently, like someone had just gotten up from it. I backed up, pressed against the door. Hello? I said, instantly hating how scared I sounded. Nothing. I waited another minute. 2. Then I heard it. A whisper. Right in my ear. You came back. I turned so fast, I nearly fell. No one there. Then the light flickered on, an old bulb hanging from the ceiling. And for the first time I saw them. Photos, dozens of them. All stuck to the walls. All the same woman, Eleanor. Some with her smiling, some with her looking sad. But in every photo her eyes were scratched out. Not by time, not by age, deliberately. And then I noticed the scratch marks on the floor, deep, desperate claw marks near the chair, like someone had tried to crawl away. I ran at the door, banging, kicking, screaming. And just like that, it opened. I fell out into the hallway, breathing hard, heart pounding. The air outside the room felt alive compared to the dead cold inside. I shut the door, locked it, didn't go back in. Next morning, I took the letter, the photo, and went down to the local records office. Small towns keep old secrets. I figured someone would know something. The woman at the desk, mid-deep 60s, short gray hair, very librarian vibe, recognized Grandma's name right away. Margaret Langley? Oh, yes. Sweet woman. Very private. Shame about her sister. I blinked. Her sister? She nodded. Eleanor. Tragic story. She was mentally ill, you know, kept locked up in that house for years. People said she used to scream through the walls. I froze. Wait, locked up? Well, not officially. There were no hospitals around back then. Families took care of their own. Margaret never married, spent her life caring for Eleanor, or so she said. My hands went cold. How did she die? The woman paused. They say she disappeared. 1964, one day gone. Margaret told everyone she ran away, but she never filed a missing person report. Never told the police. Just said Eleanor was gone, and that was that. People talked, of course. But no one ever found her. I didn't respond. Just thanked her and left. That night, I sat in the living room, staring at the key, the letter, the photo. I was starting to think Grandma didn't care for Eleanor. I think she trapped her. Back in the room. And I think Eleanor never left. Over the next week, weird things started happening. Lights flickering. Whispers when I was alone. One night I woke up and the locked door at the end of the hallway was open again. I shut it. Next night, open again. Then the dream started. Always the same. Me sitting in the rocking chair, unable to move, staring at the door while someone stood in the corner watching me. Never speaking. Never blinking. Just watching. I started sleeping downstairs. One night I woke up to see Eleanor at the foot of my bed. Pale, silent. Her eyes completely black. She didn't move. Just stood there for a full minute. Then vanished. I knew what I had to do. Not ghost hunter nonsense, not exorcisms, just truth. I went back into the room. Not at night, not alone. I brought a shovel. Under the floorboards, beneath the chair, I found her. Bones. Small. Curled up like she'd been trying to stay warm. Next to the skeleton was a necklace, a locket. Inside it, 2 photos. One of a baby. One of Grandma. They were sisters. Real sisters. And I think Grandma couldn't handle Eleanor's illness. Maybe she got violent. Maybe she scared her. Or maybe Grandma just snapped. I called the police anonymously. Told them I'd found old bones during renovation. They took it seriously. Turns out Eleanor had been dead for over 50 years, cause of death undetermined. No signs of trauma, just starvation, they said. The town was shocked. My family, even more. I didn't stick around for the funeral. Didn't stay for the interviews. I left the key on the kitchen table and locked the house behind me. I live in a condo now, bright lights, lots of people. But every now and then, when it gets real quiet, I hear it. The sound of a rocking chair. Squeak. 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 I try not to listen. But I know she followed me. Because some doors, once opened, don't close again. Especially when you're the one who let her out. I used to think I knew everything about my dad. He was the kind of man everyone liked. Charming, funny, A little weird, but in a harmless way. Always had a story to tell, always smelled like engine oil and peppermint, always humming old Bengali songs while working in the garage. But after he died, I realized I didn't know the half of it. Actually, none of us did. He passed away unexpectedly, massive stroke. One minute he was fixing his old Ambassador car, the next he was on the ground, eyes wide open, jaw clenched like he was trying to say something. I was the one who found him. His radio was still on, playing some Lata Mangeshkar song. I can't listen to her voice the same way anymore. Anyway, we buried him the next day. Small family affair, just me, Ma, and a few relatives. Dad wasn't big on rituals, so we kept it simple. After that, it was just quiet, that awkward, heavy kind of quiet that follows grief. Until the letter arrived. It came in a plain brown envelope, no return address, no name. Just one sentence on the front. You don't know who he really was. I thought it was a joke, a sick prank. I mean, who sends something like that right after someone dies? But inside the envelope was a key. A small silver key tied to a red thread, and a note. Room under the staircase. Ask your mother. Now here's the weird thing. We don't have a room under our staircase. At least I didn't think we did. Our staircase is just a normal set of wooden steps with a small storage area below, crammed with junk. Old buckets, broken chairs, and forgotten Diwali lights. I'd been in there 1,000 times as a kid playing hide and seek. But that night, curiosity got the better of me. I waited until Ma went to bed, grabbed a flashlight, and crouched down to check the storage space. The door creaked open, same as always. Dusty air, cobwebs, a broken badminton racket leaning against the wall. But something looked off. The back wall was made of wood, but part of it had a strange outline, like a square panel, and when I tapped it, it sounded hollow. I pulled everything out and got a screwdriver and started prying the panel open. Behind it was another door. Tiny, maybe 5 feet tall, with a small silver lock. My heart started racing. I took out the key from the red thread and slid it in. It turned. The door opened inward with a groan, revealing a narrow passage. It was dark, so dark I couldn't see the end. Just a smell. Damp like old paper and something burnt. I don't know why I kept going. I should have shut it and forgotten it ever existed. But I crawled inside. At the end of the narrow hallway was a small room, maybe 10 x 10 feet, no windows, just a single bulb hanging from the ceiling, and a table, with dozens of photographs. Photos of people I'd never seen before. Except for one thing, they all had my father's face. Not exactly the same, but enough to feel wrong. In one he looked younger, in another he had a full beard. In one, he was standing with a woman and 2 kids. In another, he was wearing a police uniform. And each photo had a year scribbled on the back. 1974, 1986, 1999, 2007. The weirdest part? In all the photos, he never looked older. Same face, different people, different settings, different lives. I gathered them up, took them upstairs, and went straight to Ma. Ma, I said, what's under the stairs? She looked up from her knitting, confused. What do you mean? There's a hidden room behind the storage with photos of Baba in different places with different people. Her hands froze mid-stitch. Her eyes slowly lifted to meet mine. And I swear, I've never seen that much fear in her face. She didn't deny it. She didn't act surprised. She just said, you shouldn't have gone in there. I asked her to explain, but she refused. She just said one thing. Your father wasn't always your father. That night I couldn't sleep. I sat in my room going through every photo, looking for clues. There were addresses written on some, handwriting that didn't match my dad's. Some had stamps from cities I didn't even know he'd been to, Shillong, Pune, even somewhere in Bangladesh. But the one that really messed me up? A photo of a little girl, black and white, slightly torn. She looked like me. Same nose, same eyebrows, same crooked smile. But the photo was dated 1981. I was born in 1994. Next day, I confronted Ma again. I need to know the truth, I said. Who was he? She sighed, then told me everything. Apparently, my father had shown up in her life in 1992, out of nowhere. No family, no friends, just a charming man who helped her fix her scooter on a rainy day in College Street. They started talking, fell in love, got married. She said he never talked about his past. Anytime she asked, he'd smile and change the subject. She thought it was just trauma, or maybe he was orphaned. But then things started getting strange. Once she found a passport in his drawer, a different name, different photo. When she asked about it, he got angry, said it was fake, from a movie project he worked on. Another time she caught him talking to himself in the bathroom. Not muttering, conversing, like he was replying to someone. Then the nightmares started. He'd wake up screaming, eyes wide, saying things like, "She found me," or "They're not gone yet." She tried to get him help, therapy, doctors. He refused. One night he carved something into the back of their wooden cupboard. Just one word, run. She asked him what it meant. He just said, "If the door ever opens by itself, don't go in." But by then I had already opened it. The next few weeks got worse. The house felt wrong. Cold spots, lights flickering. I'd hear footsteps when I was home alone. Once I found muddy footprints leading from the hidden door to the living room. I set up a camera outside the panel under the stairs. That night, around 2:38 a.m., I watched the footage. The door opened by itself, and someone walked out. But it wasn't my dad. It looked like him, but not exactly. Taller, thinner, paler. And his eyes were pitch black. He stood in the living room for a few seconds, then turned to the camera and smiled. I couldn't breathe. I grabbed the camera and the photos and ran to my friend Arca's place. Told him everything. He thought I was having a breakdown, even offered to call a therapist. Then I showed him the footage. He went pale. What is this, bro?" he whispered. I think my dad wasn't one person," I said. "I think he was multiple people, or being." Arca just nodded slowly. "Like a shapeshifter?" I didn't know, but that word stuck with me. I did some digging. Old newspapers, missing persons, obituaries. And I found something chilling. Between 1970 and 2010, there were 5 different men in 5 different cities with similar names and faces. All with families, all disappeared mysteriously. All left behind a locked room in their homes. The cops thought it was coincidence, or a serial killer using the same identity. But I think it was him, or whatever he was. Living parallel lives, starting over every few years, hiding in plain sight. Until someone, caught up with him. I started getting headaches, nausea, seeing things. One night I woke up to see my dad, no, something like him, sitting at the edge of my bed. His face flickered, like an old TV. He leaned close and whispered, "I couldn't keep them all out. You opened the door." Then he vanished. I think the hidden room was more than just a secret. It was a prison, and I broke it. I moved out after that. Ma went to stay with her sister. We locked up the house, sold it to a builder who wanted to tear it down and build apartments. I warned him about the room. He laughed. 6 months later, the project was abandoned. All the workers quit. Said there were accidents. Tools going missing, screams at night. The house still stands, rotting, waiting. I don't know what my father was, human? Possessed? Something older? All I know is, he loved me. I felt it. Even if he wasn't one person. Even if he wasn't fully real. But sometimes love comes with baggage. Dark baggage. Secrets buried under stairs. And some doors, once opened. Can't ever be closed again. So, all the workers quit. Said there were accidents. Tools going missing, screams at night. The house still stands, rotting, waiting. I don't know what my father was, human? Possessed? Something older? All I know is, he loved me. I felt it. Even if he wasn't one person. Even if he wasn't fully real. But sometimes love comes with baggage. Dark baggage. Secrets buried under stairs. And some doors, once opened. Can't ever be closed again. I still don't know how to talk about this without sounding crazy. But here goes. This happened 2 years ago. I had just finished college and was job hunting like a zombie. You know that phase when your life's paused but the world is moving? That was me, scrolling job boards, drinking leftover cold coffee, and feeling like a burden at home. One day, Ma told me to go stay with my aunt in Barrackpore for a while. She said the change would help, and my aunt was getting old and could use some help around the house. I wasn't excited, but honestly, I had nothing better to do. My aunt, Bonna Mashi, was one of those old-school, superstitious types. She wore the same white cotton saris every day, talked to her plants, and believed in dreams predicting the future. But she was sweet. Lived alone in this huge, slightly broken-down 2-story house her husband left behind before he died. From the outside, it looked like one of those places you'd expect to see in a Satyajit Ray mystery. Cracked walls, creepers covering the balcony, a rusted swing set in the backyard that creaked at night, even when there was no wind. Inside it was dusty but warm, kind of like time stopped in the 90s. Old photo frames, tube lights with that humming buzz, thick curtains that never moved, and the faint smell of agarbatti lingering all day. But there was one thing that stood out. A door on the first floor, always locked. Right at the end of the corridor, past all the bedrooms. Black wooden door, heavy, with an old-fashioned latch and a big padlock. On my second night there, I asked about it. Mashi, what's in that room? She didn't even look up from her knitting. Storage. Why is it locked? She paused for a second. Because some doors should stay closed. I laughed. Thought she was being dramatic. You lost the key or something? She looked me dead in the eyes and said, No, I have the key. I just don't want to use it. I thought she was kidding. She wasn't. Days passed. I helped around, bought groceries, tried not to go insane from the lack of Wi-Fi. Mashi didn't have internet, said it attracted too much information, whatever that meant. But that door started messing with me. I don't know how to explain it. It wasn't just curiosity, it was something else. Some nights, I'd hear faint thuds from that side of the house, like someone dropping something heavy. I told myself it was rats or pigeons on the roof. But then I noticed something weird. Every night before going to bed, Mashi would go to that door, not to open it, just to stand in front of it. Sometimes whispering, sometimes just staring. One night I watched from the corner of the hallway. She placed her hand on the door and said, Shobtik Aik, Oraholigash. Then she walked away like nothing happened. I couldn't sleep. One afternoon, while Mashi was out buying rice, I went snooping. I tried to peek through the crack between the door and the floor. Nothing. Just blackness. I checked the lock, rusty but strong. But then I noticed, just beside the door, 3 tiny scratch marks on the wall, like someone had dragged their nails down, trying to hold on to something. I felt cold suddenly. The hallway was warm a second ago, but now it felt like I walked into a fridge. I stepped back, decided not to push it. But that night, something happened. I woke up at 3:17 a.m., not because of a sound, but because I felt someone was in the room. I sat up. Room was dark, but I could make out the shape of the almirah, the window, the dressing table, and someone standing near the door. I froze. It looked like a man, tall, wearing something long like a kurta, head slightly tilted. I couldn't scream, I just stared. Then he turned and walked through the wall, not through the door, through the wall. Next morning, I told Mashi. She didn't seem surprised. She just said, "Don't open that door." "But what's inside?" I asked. She sighed. Something that was locked away a long time ago. Something that shouldn't be remembered. That answer made it worse. A few days later, while cleaning the dining room cabinet, I found a box. Old wooden box, locked with a hook. But the latch was broken. Inside were photos. Dozens of them. Black and white. Some Polaroids. Every photo had my aunt, young, happy. But she wasn't alone. She was with a man. Same man in every photo. Same kurta. Same smile. Same slightly tilted head. And I noticed something. In every single picture, the man's eyes were scratched out. With a blade or a nail. Scratched. Viciously. I took the box to Mashi. She stared at it for a long time, then said quietly, "You've seen him, haven't you?" My heart sank. You said it was storage. It was, once, but not anymore. I asked her to tell me everything. So she did. And what I heard still haunts me. That man, his name was Ridabon. He was my aunt's husband, my uncle. She married him when she was 24. She loved him. Everyone did. He was polite, soft-spoken, read poetry, made tea for everyone. But there was one problem. He had a brother. Or at least, that's what he said. He never let anyone meet him. But sometimes Ridabon would disappear for days. When he returned, he'd act strange. Forget things. Call my aunt by the wrong name. Laugh at inappropriate moments. Once he left a dead crow on her pillow and said it was a gift from Bai. Then things got darker. Mashi started finding symbols drawn under their bed. Chalk marking, circles with eyes, arrows pointing to the locked room upstairs, which back then wasn't locked. She tried asking him about it. He told her, "It's the door between our lives. Sometimes he comes through." She thought he was mentally ill, took him to a doctor. But the doctor disappeared 3 days later. Vanished on his way home. Never found. Mashi finally told Ridabon to leave. He refused. Started locking himself inside that upstairs room for hours. One day she gathered courage, broke open the door. What she saw inside made her faint. The walls were covered in mirrors, dozens of them, all showing different versions of him. Some smiling, some screaming, some not moving at all. She shut the room, called her brother, my dad, who came and helped her get rid of everything. They padlocked the room, burned the mirrors, told everyone Ridabon had gone abroad. But the truth? He never left. She found him one morning, hanging inside that room. but his feet weren't touching the floor. They were still an inch above, moving slowly, like he was being held up by something unseen. Mashi screamed, ran to call help. When she came back, he was gone. Only the rope remained. After that, strange things started happening. Whispers, objects moving, people visiting the house and falling sick. One tenant even claimed to see a man with no eyes watching her sleep. So Mashi did the only thing she could. She sealed the room, locked it, and made a promise. I won't open this door, no matter what he says, no matter what he looks like. Because she believed. It wasn't just Ridabon in there. It was something else, wearing his face. After she told me everything, I couldn't sleep for days. But one night, I made a mistake. I was curious. I wanted to see if it was real. So I sat outside the door with a voice recorder, just to hear something. Maybe footsteps, maybe silence. But around 2:42 a.m., the recorder picked up something. A whisper. Faint, raspy. Let me out. I know your name. I deleted the file. Packed my bags the next morning. Told Mashi I couldn't stay. She nodded. You stayed longer than most. I asked her, why do you still live here? She said, because if I leave, he might follow. That was 2 years ago. I never went back. She still lives there. Still locks the door every night. Still talks to it sometimes. And me. Sometimes when I sleep, I hear a whisper, even in my own apartment. A voice I've never heard before, saying, you opened the door with your mind. Now I know where you are. I don't know what that means. But I keep my lights on now, always. I'm not sure how to begin this because part of me still wishes I never found out the truth. But I did. And once you know, you can't unknow. This happened just last year in 2024. I was 27, recently divorced, and back in my hometown of Krishnanagar after nearly 8 years. Life hadn't turned out the way I planned. My startup failed, my marriage ended, and I had 0 savings. Basically, I was broke and broken. So I moved back in with my mother. We lived in a slightly old 2-story house my grandfather had built. The kind of house that still had wooden windows, yellowing switchboards, and a weird smell of naphthalene and damp corners. The house always felt a bit off to me growing up, but I could never explain why. When I returned, Ma had turned a bit strange. I expected her to be angry or disappointed, but she was neither, just tired. Like she'd given up on everything. She cooked, watched TV, and mostly avoided conversation. Except when she gave me one rule. Don't go into the basement. Now, before you start thinking ghosts and spirits, let me be clear. The basement in our house wasn't some creepy haunted cellar. It was just a locked space below the ground floor. Small metal gate, rusty lock, always shut. When I asked her why, she just said, too many rats, smells. Your father used to keep junk there. That made sense. Or, well, it almost did. Because here's the thing. We don't have a basement. At least I didn't know we had one. A few weeks in, I got a freelance job writing blog content. Wasn't much, but it helped me pay for Wi-Fi and some snacks. Life settled into a weird rhythm. Me in my room, Ma downstairs in front of the TV. But sometimes, especially around 2 or 3 at night, I'd hear sounds from the floor below. Not loud, just soft thuds like something heavy moving. Or something being dragged. Once I heard what sounded like a baby crying. Just for a few seconds. It was so faint I wasn't sure if I imagined it. The next morning I asked Ma. You're dreaming, she said flatly. But I heard, there are no babies in this house. She didn't even look at me when she said it. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking, if we never had a basement, and I never saw one, why was it not off limits? So around 3 a.m., I tiptoed downstairs. The metal door was there under the stairs, painted the same color as the wall, like someone tried to hide it. I would have missed it if I wasn't looking. The lock was huge, old, and covered in dust. I didn't try to break it. I just stood there staring. That's when I noticed it. There were scratches on the inside. Long, thin, horizontal scratch marks, like fingernails. But they were on the inside of the door. Whatever made those marks wasn't trying to break in. It was trying to get out. I didn't tell Ma what I saw. What was the point? She would have just told me to stop snooping. But I started watching her. She avoided the basement like it was cursed. Every night before bed, she placed an incense stick in front of the basement door and whispered something. I tried recording it once on my phone, but the audio was mostly static, a few crackling sounds. One time I thought I heard her say, "Takur dike rakun, or kache jete debona." God, please watch over. I won't let him reach it. What did that mean? One day, Ma had to go to the hospital for a routine checkup. She was gone most of the day. I took the chance. I found a set of keys in her Almira drawer, one of them, a long, ancient key with rust flakes. It fit the basement lock. The door creaked open, like a scene from a horror movie. The smell hit me first. Rotten, moldy, wet tea. I clicked on the flashlight on my phone and stepped in. It wasn't a big space. Low ceiling, cement floor, wooden beams. And in the middle of it was a cot, an old wooden baby cot, covered in a torn mosquito net. There was no baby. But the cot was rocking. Not wildly, just slowly, like someone had just let go of it. I froze, took a deep breath, then walked toward it. On the wall above the cot, there were photos, black and white, faded. Every photo showed a baby, same baby, wrapped in a red shawl. But in every photo, the baby was blurred, like someone moved the camera or smudged the film, but only the baby. The rest of the picture was perfectly clear. I turned to the corner and found a diary. Old, torn cover, pages yellowing. It belonged to my father. I didn't know he kept a diary. The entries were strange. Here's one I remember word for word. "She's crying again. We gave her everything. Why does she cry all night? Why won't she eat? Her eyes, God, her eyes don't blink. She watches from the cot. I think she knows." Another said, "Bonna said we should get rid of her, that she's not a baby. The babies don't smile like that when you bleed. But I can't. She's ours, even if she came from the wrong place." I stopped reading after that. I couldn't breathe. There was something else in this house, some story I never knew, some truth that had been sealed in silence. I locked the basement and put the key back. That night I couldn't sleep, because at 2:54 a.m. I heard the cot rocking, even though the door was locked again. The next day I confronted Ma. She didn't get angry. She just sat down, like her legs gave up. Then she said something I'll never forget. She wasn't born. She just appeared. I didn't understand. Ma continued. "We never had children. We tried, Beta. Years of trying. One day your father said he wanted to try something else. Something old. Something from his village. He went to his ancestral home in Bankura for 2 weeks. When he returned, he had her. A baby girl. No birth certificate. No hospital record. Just a baby wrapped in a red shawl. At first, Ma was too happy to question it. But then strange things started happening. The baby never cried. Then one night, she cried for 12 hours straight, non-stop, no sleep, no food. Her shadow moved separately from her body, and she stared. Not like a baby, like a grown-up, like she was studying them. Then animals around the house started dying. A pigeon fell dead at the doorstep. Then their neighbor's cat. One night, Ma woke up to find the baby outside her crib, standing in the dark, facing the wall. They tried to abandon her. Left her at an orphanage. But she returned in the middle of the night, just sitting in the cot again. They locked the doors, checked the windows. No one knew how she got back. Ma was convinced she wasn't human. She begged my father to send her away. He refused. He had grown obsessed with her. Kept saying she had answers, that she belonged to an older world. When Ma threatened to leave, he finally agreed. They locked her in the basement, put her in the cot. But the next morning, she was gone. Just disappeared, and only the shawl remained. I asked Ma what happened after. She said nothing did, until I moved back. She thinks it's not coincidence. She thinks she followed me, that I reminded her of him. And maybe she's still in the house, waiting. I moved out 2 days later. Ma didn't stop me. She said it was safer if I left. We don't talk much now. Sometimes I dream of the red shawl. Sometimes I wake up hearing a baby cry, even though I live alone. And last week, I found a photograph outside my door, old, faded. It showed a baby in a cot, red shawl, blurred face, and behind her in the shadows, a figure with my father's eyes. I grew up believing my dad had no siblings. Whenever the topic of family came up, he'd just wave it away with we don't talk about that side. I never pressed. Every kid has that moment where they realize their parents are hiding something. And eventually, you learn not to poke the bruise. But that changed when I turned 27. It started with a message request on Facebook from a woman named Anita Roy. The name meant nothing to me, but the message was simple. I think we're cousins. Can we talk? Now, most people would probably ignore that, right? But something about the name stuck with me. Maybe it was because I'd never known any family outside of my mom and dad. Maybe it was because her profile picture looked strangely familiar. Same cheekbones, same tired eyes. I replied. Anita wasn't just some scammer or mistaken stranger. She was real. Her mother was my father's sister, a sister I had no idea even existed. Her voice trembled on the call as she explained it. I wasn't supposed to contact you. My mom warned me, said your dad doesn't want anything to do with us. But I couldn't take it anymore. I just needed to know someone from that side. That side. That phrase felt heavy, like a door creaking open that had been locked for years. I confronted my dad that same night. We were sitting in the living room. He was watching one of those boring news debates he liked, the kind where everyone yells and nothing makes sense. I muted the TV. Why didn't you tell me you have a sister? His expression didn't change, but he reached for the remote. Don't start this. Start what? You lied to me for 27 years. He didn't look angry, just tired. There are things you don't understand and don't need to understand. I talked to Anita, your niece. That got his attention. He turned to me, his voice quieter. You shouldn't have done that. And that was it. No yelling, no explanation, just a warning. The next few weeks were weird. My dad stopped talking to me unless it was necessary. My mom stayed neutral, but I could tell she was scared. Not scared of him, scared of the past. Meanwhile, Anita and I kept talking. She told me bits and pieces, but it all sounded insane. Something about an old house in Siliguri, where our grandparents used to live. Something about a room no one was allowed to enter, and a summer when everything changed. "Come visit us," she said. "You need to see the place." I should have said no. I should have left it alone. But I didn't. The train to Siliguri took 10 hours. Anita met me at the station, along with her younger brother, Vikram. They were warm, excited, and a bit awkward, like meeting a pen pal in real life after years of texting. Their house was simple, old 2 floors with faded yellow paint and vines crawling up the side. It looked like every childhood memory I never had. "You're staying in the guest room," Anita said, "but we'll show you around first." She wasn't kidding. The house had this weird layout, like parts of it were added later without much planning. Narrow corridors, low ceilings, wooden doors that creaked no matter how carefully you closed them. But the part that stood out most was the locked room. It was on the 2nd floor, at the very end of the hallway. Unlike the rest of the house, which felt lived in and warm, this door looked untouched. The paint was peeling, the lock was thick and rusted, and the air near it felt stale. "What's that room?" I asked. Anita and Vikram exchanged a glance. "That used to be our grandfather's study," she said. "It's been locked since 1999. "Why?" She hesitated. "Because of what happened." I waited for more, but she just changed the topic. That night I couldn't sleep. Maybe it was the unfamiliar bed. Maybe it was the heavy rain tapping on the windows, or maybe it was the way that locked doors seemed to hum with silence. At 2 a.m. I got up to get water, and I found Vikram standing near the locked room, just staring at it. I froze. "Hey, you okay?" He jumped a little. "Yeah, sorry. Couldn't sleep." "You were looking at the door." He gave a nervous smile. "I do that sometimes. Just wondering." "Wondering what?" "If it remembers." He said it so casually and walked off before I could ask what the hell he meant. The next morning, Anita told me everything. We were in the backyard drinking chai, the garden overgrown and wild. "My mom, your dad, and our uncle Arun grew up in this house. But something changed when they were teenagers. That room, it's where they used to hang out, hide things, fight, whatever. One summer, Uncle Arun went missing. Just vanished. No note, no call, nothing. They searched everywhere. Police got involved, it was in the papers, but nothing came of it. And after that, everything fell apart. Your dad left for Kolkata. My mom married early and moved to Guwahati. No one stayed here, except my grandparents." "What do you mean nothing came of it?" I asked. "A whole person disappeared." She nodded slowly, and no one ever opened the room again. I became obsessed. I don't know why. Maybe it was because of how my dad reacted. Maybe it was because of the strange way Vikram talked. But something about that locked room gnawed at me. So I did what any curious idiot would do. I picked the lock. It wasn't easy, but I watched some YouTube tutorials, found old tools in the shed, and one evening, when Anita and Vikram were out, I managed to get it open. The smell hit me first. Dust, mold, something else like rusted metal and old books. The room was dim, curtains drawn, everything covered in white sheets. I pulled one off. Underneath was a desk, on it a stack of journals. And in those journals was the real story. They were Arun's journals, dated from 1996 to 1999. At first it was normal stuff, school, fights with siblings, crushes. But slowly things turned darker. He wrote about how their father, my grandfather, used to beat them. About how my dad and he would sometimes lock themselves in this room to escape. He talked about secrets, about things we did that we can't take back. One entry hit me hard. They told me we had to do it, that it was the only way to make him stop. But I didn't want to. I was scared. When it was done, I couldn't stop crying. My hands shook for days. Another entry. Ion won't talk about it. Priya pretends it never happened. But I dream about it every night. His face, the way his body twitched. I think we killed him. Ion, my dad. Priya, Anita's mom. They were teenagers. And they killed someone. I read every journal cover to cover. The story that emerged was horrifying. Their father, my grandfather, was abusive, violent, especially toward Arun. One night, they said he crossed the line, beat Arun so badly he passed out. The other two, my dad and Priya, decided to end it. They poisoned him. Slowly, over weeks. Mixed pills into his food, hid his medicine. Arun wrote about how he didn't want to be part of it, but was pressured. If we don't stop him now, he'll kill us. The last entry was from July 1999. He's dead. They buried him under the floorboards, right here, in this room. I didn't help. I couldn't. But I watched. I watched everything. I dropped the journal. I didn't know what to do. I was shaking. My entire body felt cold. I paced the room, trying to convince myself it was fiction. A cry for help. Exaggeration. Until I saw the floorboards. One section looked different, slightly raised, the wood a different shade. I pulled it up, and I saw bones. I left the room in a daze. I didn't tell Anita or Vikram. Not right away. I need time to think. To figure out if I was ready to destroy our family. But the next night, Vikram knocked on my door. I know what you found, he said. I saw the light under the door. You were in there. I didn't deny it. He just nodded. I've always known something was wrong. Mom talks in her sleep sometimes, says his name, says she's sorry. Does Anita know? No, and she shouldn't. In the end, I made a choice. I left the house. Told them I had an emergency back home. I returned to Kolkata, sat my dad down, and told him everything. He didn't deny it. Didn't cry, didn't beg. Just looked at me with dead eyes and said, "You weren't supposed to know." I asked why. He said, because sometimes, to stop monsters, you have to become one. And then he walked into the kitchen, poured himself a drink, and turned on the news. Like nothing had happened. It's been a year. I haven't told anyone else, not even my mom. I carry the secret like a weight in my chest. Sometimes I think about reporting it, turning him in, digging up the body, showing the journals, making it public. But then I remember Vikram's face, Anita's laughter. The way that house still breathes, still remembers. And I do nothing, because maybe I'm like them now. Maybe the blood runs in all of us. I was 26 when I found out the truth about my uncle's backyard shed. It still messes with my head sometimes, how normal things can hide the worst kinds of secrets. And not the ghost-type stuff. No demons, no curses, just humans. Real people doing real, horrible things. Let me start from the beginning. I grew up visiting my Uncle Riaz's place during summer holidays. My dad's older brother, Riaz Mama, lived in this quiet village near Barisal. The area was surrounded by fields, ponds, and narrow, dusty roads that led to tiny grocery stores and tea stalls. It wasn't the kind of place you'd expect anything dark to happen. Everyone seemed nice. Too nice in hindsight. My cousins were fun. We'd spend evenings catching fish, climbing trees, and playing carom till midnight. And yet there was one part of the house we were never allowed near, the locked tin shed at the back of the garden. There was nothing fancy. Just a rusty gray structure with a padlock and a weirdly overgrown bush in front of it. Whenever we asked about it, we'd get the same reply. Old tools and junk. Nothing interesting. We believed it mostly, but sometimes I'd catch my uncle giving it this strange look, like the kind of look you give something you're scared of but also protecting. I brushed it off as a kid, but now I wonder how I didn't see the sign sooner. Anyway, years passed. I went to college, got busy with life, and barely visited. Then in 2021, Uncle Riaz passed away suddenly, heart attack. I hadn't seen him in over a year. We were all shocked. I took a few days off work and went back to the village for the funeral. After the burial, things felt heavy at the house. My aunt was quiet, barely speaking. My cousins were grown up by then, trying to stay strong, but I could tell they were shaken. 2 days after the funeral, my aunt came to me while I was sitting on the veranda. "Can you do me a favor, Ashik?" she asked quietly. "Of course." She hesitated. "That shed, the one in the back, I need you to open it." I was surprised. "Wait, that shed? After all these years?" She nodded. "The key's in your uncle's drawer. I can't bring myself to open it, but it needs to be done." I didn't ask questions. Maybe they were finally clearing out the house. I went into my uncle's old room, opened the drawer she mentioned, and sure enough, there was an old brass key. It felt weirdly heavy in my hand. I walked to the backyard alone. The air felt still, unusually quiet. Even the birds weren't chirping. I brushed aside the overgrown bush and approached the lock. The moment the key turned, I felt a chill crawl up my spine. Not cold wind, something deeper. Like my body knew before my mind did, something wasn't right. The door creaked open. Inside it was dark and dusty. Spider webs hung from the ceiling. The air smelled like rust, and something else, something sour and rotten. There were boxes, tools, old furniture, and then I saw the trap door. A metal hatch bolted into the concrete floor, half covered by a rug. I stared at it, heart thudding. This wasn't just storage. Why would anyone hide a basement in a shed? I texted my cousin Rafi. "Bro, did you know about the trap door in the shed?" No reply. I stood there for a minute. Part of me wanted to walk away, pretend I didn't see it. But curiosity won. Always does. The hatch wasn't locked. I pulled it open slowly. Stairs led downward, narrow, concrete, damp. A single bulb hung from the ceiling at the bottom, barely lighting the room. I climbed down. The moment my feet touched the floor, my stomach dropped. It was a room, a small, soundproof room. Padded walls, chains on the floor, a table with metal restraints, and photos. Stacks and stacks of photos. I picked one up. A boy, maybe 12, sitting in that very room, tied to the chair. I couldn't breathe. I kept flipping. Different kids, different years. All scared, some crying, a few unconscious. My legs gave out. I sat on the cold floor, shaking. Who were they? Why were they here? I opened a drawer nearby. Inside were journals, meticulously written entries, each one documenting the same thing. When a child was brought in, how they were conditioned, and when they were disposed of. That word, disposed. I threw up. This wasn't just my uncle hiding tools. This was years of horror. And nobody knew. Or at least, I thought nobody knew. I stumbled upstairs, shut the hatch, locked the shed, and went straight to my aunt. Her face turned pale the moment she saw me. "You opened it." I nodded. She sat down, holding her chest like she might faint. I wanted to scream at her, to ask what the hell was going on, but something told me to wait. She looked at me for a long time before speaking. I didn't know. Not at first. I thought he just liked his privacy. He was always secretive. She paused. Then one night, I saw him bringing in a boy, a small child. He said it was his nephew's son from a distant relative, that he was taking care of him for a few days. But the boy never left, and no one came looking. Tears filled her eyes. I confronted him. He denied everything, got violent, told me if I ever said a word, he'd make sure no one believed me, and I believed him. My hands were trembling. "Why didn't you tell the police?" She gave me a hollow look. "You think they'd care? A powerful man, respected in the community, versus a housewife? They'd laugh me out." I didn't know what to say. We sat in silence. Later that night, I went back to the shed. I took pictures, evidence. I knew I had to report it, no matter what. But when I got to the station, things didn't go the way I thought. The officer looked at the photos, expressionless. "Where's the body?" he asked. There were no bodies, just records, photos, journals. He shook his head. "Then it's just stories. Could be faked." He handed the phone back. I wanted to scream, but I knew this wasn't over. I started digging into the kids in the photos I posted online, carefully, not revealing too much, just enough to attract attention. And slowly, responses came. One woman recognized her brother, missing since 2005. Another man identified a photo of himself as a child. He'd escaped from somewhere similar, but didn't remember much. Piece by piece, the puzzle started to come together. Turns out my uncle wasn't working alone. He was part of a ring, a network that operated in silence, hidden in plain sight, using small towns, trusted faces, and underground rooms like this one. The truth shattered me. I spent months collecting everything, sending it anonymously to journalists, human rights groups, even international NGOs. Eventually someone listened. An expose aired on national TV. My uncle's face, the photos, the shed, and that village. They denied everything. Said the photos were edited, that it was a smear campaign, that I was trying to ruin a dead man's name for money. No one from the community supported me, not even my cousins. But some things started changing. Other survivors came forward. More locations were discovered. The network began to unravel. And that shed? It's still there, locked, sealed with police tape now. Sometimes, late at night, I dream I'm back there, down in that cold room, staring at those terrified faces. I wish I could unsee it. But I know this. Silence is how evil survives. I broke that silence. And I'm not done yet. I was never supposed to know about the room. Not because it was some haunted, cursed space like you see in movies. Not because it was filled with ghosts or ancient relics or anything like that. The room I'm talking about was far worse. It was real. And everything that happened inside it left scars that won't fade anytime soon. Now let me back up a bit. The story starts in 2022 when I moved into my grandparents' old house. It was a 2-story place in Narayanganj, big with a wraparound porch, a garden in front that hadn't seen a gardener in years, and vines creeping up the outside walls like nature was slowly trying to take the place back. The house had been empty for years. After my grandfather died in 2003, my grandmother stayed there alone until she passed away in 2019. Since then, the house just sat there, silent, decaying, full of memories no one wanted to sort through. My parents moved abroad, my uncles were busy with their lives, and my cousins had no interest in it. So when I lost my job during the pandemic and needed a place to crash, my dad offered the house. "Stay there as long as you want," he said. "Just try to keep it clean." Seemed like a good deal. No rent, lots of space, and maybe a chance to start fresh. But moving into an old family house is strange, especially when it hasn't been touched in 3 years. Dust on every surface, stale air, furniture covered with white sheets. And that smell like old wood, damp clothes, and something older. Hard to describe. Anyway, I settled in. Took the upstairs bedroom that used to be my uncle's. Started fixing little things, leaky taps, broken windows, flickering lights. I figured I'd spend a couple of months there while I figured out my next move. But then, about a week in, I noticed something odd. I was going through the original floor plan of the house. Found it in a drawer in the study, probably left by my grandfather. I was trying to understand the wiring so I could fix a fuse issue. The plan showed 4 rooms on the ground floor and 3 on the upper. Easy. But when I compared it to what I was seeing in real life, something didn't match. There was an entire section between the back kitchen and the staircase that wasn't accounted for. A thick wall stood there in real life, but on paper it was marked as open space. No door, no mention of a room. Just a blank area. I thought maybe it was just an outdated plan, so I let it go. Until I noticed something else. At night sometimes I'd hear this strange hum coming from that side of the house. Low, mechanical, like an old fridge or generator. I checked the kitchen. Nothing. The first time I followed the sound, it led me straight to that thick wall. It was quiet during the day, but always came back around 2 or 3 a.m. Same exact sound, same spot. I started knocking on the wall, hollow in places, solid in others, which made no sense. It was all supposed to be concrete. But one section, right near the floor, sounded off, like there was space behind it. That's when I started digging. Literally. I cleared out the storage shelf leaning against the wall and noticed a seam, faint, vertical, just slightly darker than the rest of the wall. I tapped around it for a good 10 minutes until one panel gave a soft click. A panel slid open. Behind it, a door. An old wooden door, no knob, just a tiny keyhole. I stood there staring at it for what felt like hours. I didn't tell anyone. The next few days were torture. I kept dreaming about it. Hearing the hum, louder this time. Seeing flashes of something or someone standing behind it. I stopped sleeping. Eventually, I couldn't take it anymore. I needed to know. I searched the house from top to bottom for a key. No luck. Then one day, tucked inside an old photo album in the upstairs bookshelf, I found a flat, rusted key taped behind a photo of my grandfather. I don't know how I didn't notice it before. I went down to the wall, slid the panel, and stood in front of the hidden door. My hands were shaking. The key fit. The lock clicked. I opened the door. It was pitch dark inside. I stepped in and felt around for a switch. My fingers brushed against something cold. Metal. The lights flickered on, and everything inside me froze. It was a room, but not just any room. Soundproof walls. A single metal chair bolted to the ground. A tripod and camera in the corner. Shelves of VHS tapes hundreds of them, labeled with dates ranging from 1991 to 2002. And a smell, something rotten, chemical, like formalin mixed with mold. My stomach turned. I backed out of the room, slammed the door shut, locked it again, and ran upstairs. I stayed in bed all night, heart pounding, door locked, lights on. Next day, I went back. I had to see what was on those tapes. I dug out my uncle's old VHS player from the attic, connected it to the TV, and loaded the first tape. It started with static. Then a timestamp, July 4th, 1992. A dimly lit version of the room. Same chair, same setup. Then a man walked in. My grandfather. Young, stern, wearing a white shirt. Behind him, a boy, maybe 14. Thin, scared, hands tied. I paused the tape. I couldn't breathe. I fast-forwarded a few seconds. The boy was screaming. The camera kept rolling. I stopped watching. There were hundreds of these tapes. Different kids, different dates, same room. I didn't want to believe it. Not my grandfather, not the man who taught me how to ride a bike, who gave me candy and told bedtime stories. But the proof was right there. And it didn't stop with him. As I watched more tapes, only bits, I couldn't handle full ones, I noticed something even worse. Eventually, my grandfather stopped appearing, and someone else took his place. My uncle. The one whose room I was sleeping in. He had carried it on. The same setup, the same chair, different victims. The last tape was dated October 2002. That's the year my grandfather died. I guess my uncle stopped after that, or maybe he just moved on. But the room had remained sealed since then. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't go to the police. What could I say? Hey, I found a secret torture room in my dead grandfather's house, filled with VHS tapes of crimes committed 20 years ago. They'd think I made it up. I called my dad, told him I needed to talk. He flew in 2 days later. I showed him everything. The wall, the door, the tapes. He didn't say a word the whole time. After a long silence, he said, I always wondered why he kept that room locked. You knew? I shouted. No, but I had a feeling something was wrong. Your uncle was weird, avoided women, kept to himself, and Abu, he was strict, controlling, obsessive. But I never imagined this. I didn't know what to believe anymore. That week we burned the tapes. All of them. Part of me wishes we didn't. That we had shown someone. But another part of me is glad they're gone. That room is still there, sealed now. I bricked up the door, covered it with shelves. Sometimes I still hear the hum, but I don't go near it. I don't want to know what else was hidden, what else my family never told me. Because sometimes the worst monsters aren't strangers in the dark. They're the ones in our family photos. After burning the tapes, the silence in the house changed. It wasn't just the absence of that mechanical hum. It was like the air itself grew heavier, like the walls knew what we'd done and were holding on to secrets they weren't ready to give up yet. Dad left a few days later. He didn't say much, just told me to stay out of that part of the house and keep the past where it belongs. I nodded, but deep down I knew that past was already inside me. I started seeing things differently. Every creak in the floor, every flicker of a light bulb felt intentional. Paranoia clung to me like dust. I walked past the kitchen and feel like something was watching me. Not something supernatural, just someone from memory, from trauma. But I didn't leave. That's the part that surprises people. Why the hell would I stay in a house like that? Because I needed answers. You don't grow up thinking your family is evil. You don't expect your bedtime storyteller to be a predator. So my brain refused to settle. I needed to understand why. That's when I remembered my grandmother's old trunk in the attic. She used to keep everything in there, diaries, photo albums, letters. It was her version of a time capsule. I hadn't looked through it when I moved in. Too dusty, too overwhelming. But now it felt like the last place where truth might live. I opened it late one night, flashlight in one hand, heart beating out of my chest. Inside were bundles of letters tied with ribbon, a few silver bangles, her passport, some black and white photos, and 3 leather-bound diaries. I opened the first one. October 1990. He told me not to ask questions, said it was a project for the betterment of the family, that it was necessary. I didn't understand. But I saw blood on his collar tonight. The handwriting was shaky, hesitant. My grandmother knew. She knew, and she stayed. Flipping through the pages was like falling through a hole I didn't know existed. Page after page of quiet observations, kids arriving late at night, doors being locked, sounds she tried to ignore. But the worst part? She kept justifying it. If it helps keep the family name safe. Maybe they were orphans. Maybe it was a science thing. I shouldn't question. He loves his family. It was like she had built a narrative just to survive beside the monster she married. I felt sick, not just at her words, but at myself, for being part of that bloodline, for carrying the same name. And then I found the third diary, the last one, dated 2003, the year my grandfather died. There were only 2 entries. January 2003. He's ill. Says he wants to leave something behind, something powerful. He's training Kamal now. That's my uncle's name. March 2003. I heard them fighting. Kamal said he didn't want to continue it anymore. Said he's done. I saw tears in his eyes for the first time. Maybe there's hope for him. But my husband, he looked furious. That changed everything. For months, I thought my uncle had just continued what my grandfather started. But maybe, just maybe, he was trying to stop it. That would explain why the last tape was dated late 2002. Maybe he did stop. Maybe my grandfather's death wasn't natural. I checked the death certificate. Heart attack. But there was no autopsy. No hospital records. Just a declaration signed by a local doctor who knew the family well. I didn't trust it anymore. I had to talk to my uncle. He lived in Chattogram now, retired, mostly kept to himself, never married. I booked a train. He wasn't happy to see me. "Why are you here?" he asked, standing half in, half out of his 1-bedroom flat. His eyes were sunken, face weathered, like the weight of the past had been pressing down on him for years. "I found the room," I said. His face went blank. "I know everything." He stepped back slowly and let me in. The apartment was bare. No family photos, no decorations, no mirrors. Just a couch, a kettle, and a single shelf with a few books. I sat. He didn't. "Your dad should have burned that house to the ground," he said quietly. "So it's all true?" He nodded once. "I was 13 when it started. He said it was for science. Said he was working on a study about human reaction to confinement and fear." I stared at him. "What?" He shrugged. That's how he justified it. At first I believed him. I didn't know better. But then it got worse. He started talking about purification, cleansing the future. I still didn't understand. "And the kids?" I asked. "Street kids, orphans, sometimes even runaways." He had people who helped, paid them to bring kids in, said he was offering shelter, education. He sat down across from me, rubbed his face with both hands. I didn't realize until it was too late. When I was 18, I tried to report it, went to the police, but they laughed, said no one would believe me. He had connections, money, influence. I felt cold all over. I wanted to leave. I packed my bags. But then Alma got sick, cancer. And he told me if I left, he'd stop paying for her treatment. He looked at me, eyes red now. So I stayed, watched, cleaned. Sometimes helped with lights or moving shelves, but I never touched a kid. Never. I stopped everything in 2002, he added. And him, I asked. Did you? He didn't answer, just looked away. That silence said more than words. I returned to the house different. I knew the truth now, but instead of peace, I felt worse, like I was carrying their crimes inside me. I couldn't sleep. That room haunted me even with the door sealed. I started dreaming about it again, except now I was the one inside, tied to the chair, lights in my eyes, shadows watching. I tried to move out, even packed my bags. But something kept pulling me back. I don't know if it was guilt or obsession, but I couldn't leave it alone. So I made one last decision. I tore down the wall. For days, I worked with a sledgehammer, breaking brick after brick until the whole thing was exposed. And that's when I saw it. There wasn't just one room. There was a second door, behind a false wall, smaller, narrower. I broke it down too. Inside was a filing cabinet, rusted shut, full of old notebooks, patient files, photographs. Some of the files were labeled with numbers, others with names, kids' names. Each file had a photo, a short note, then a stamp. Failed or cleared. What the hell was this? One note read, Subject 14, complied well, minimal resistance. Showed signs of dissociation by day 4. Recommend long-term study. Another. Subject 18, escaped attempt, terminated. I couldn't breathe. These weren't just victims. They were subjects, like part of an experiment. Not for science, for something twisted, controlled. And then I saw the last file. It had no name, just a photo. A boy. Me. The photo was from 2003. I must have been 6. The note? Backup subject, family line must continue. DNA secure. No exposure until necessary. I dropped the file. Ran to the bathroom. Threw up. My own grandfather had plans for me. Maybe his death came just in time. Maybe that's why my uncle stopped. But now I couldn't ignore the final truth. This wasn't just some dark family secret. I was part of it, born from it, prepared for it. And now, the house was mine. It's 2025 now. I still live here. But not because I want to, because I need to guard it. Every month someone comes, journalists, urban explorers, paranormal vloggers. They hear rumors. They poke around. I let them see the front rooms, even the attic, but not the back hallway. That stays sealed. Because if I open that door again, I might not be able to close it. And what scares me most? Some nights, I dream I'm unlocking the cabinet, putting in a new file, turning on the camera, and smiling. Like he did. They hear rumors. They poke around. I let them see the front rooms, even the attic, but not the back hallway. That stays sealed. Because if I open that door again, I might not be able to close it. And what scares me most? Some nights, I dream I'm unlocking the cabinet, putting in a new file, turning on the camera, and smiling. Like he did.